Good morning, everyone. This is Shaktija Singh, student of Law College, Dehradun, faculty of Uttaranchal University, and I'm currently pursuing BLLB honors in second semester. So today we are going to discuss about the meaning and growth and development of the administrative law. So we'll be beginning with the definitions first. So definition here which I'll be discussing was given by three scholars who hail from two different countries. Now their country's specification is important here because their definition also differ according to their country's constitutional system or legal system. So Dicey was a British constitution scholar who has stated in his definition that administrative law is that law which deals with the rights and liabilities of the public officials and the private individuals, and it also governs the procedure by which such rights and liabilities are enforced. Now, the definition given by Ivor Jennings. Ivor Jennings was also a British constitution scholar, and his definition is very simple. He says that administrative law is that law which deals with the administration and the organization, powers, and procedure of the administrative agencies. Now, we'll compare these two definitions. We'll come to know that the definition given by Dicey is much wider than that of the Jennings, and it will draw Venn diagram also of these two definitions. The bigger circle will constitute the Dicey's definition and the smaller circle will constitute the Jennings definition, क्योंकि जेनिंग्स ने अपने डेफिनेशन में सिर्फ अपने आप को एक एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव सेक्टर तक ही लिमिट करके रखा था. उन्होंने कहा था कि एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव लॉ इज़ ऑल अबाउट एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन एंड नथिंग बियॉन्ड इट. लेकिन Dicey on the other hand said that administrative law is something beyond it because it also deals with the dealings of the public officials and the private individuals, plus their rights and liabilities, and the procedure how their rights and liabilities will be governed is also covered under the administrative law. Now moving on with the definition of Davis. Davis was a American constitution scholar, and he says in his definition that administrative law is that law which deals with the powers and procedure of the administrative agencies and the law specially governing the judicial review of the administrative actions. So he has introduced the third component of judicial review of the administrative actions in the definition of the administrative law. Why? Because he was influenced by his country's written constitution's major component of judicial review. That is why he has introduced this component in the administrative laws definition. Now this was the part of the definition. Now we'll move on to the meaning of the administrative law. So since the administrative law is not a codified law, it doesn't have any bare act of it. That is why it is in the process of continuous evolution. तो इसके कारण ये अभी कोडिफाइड नहीं हुआ है, ये अभी इवोल्यूशन प्रोसेस में है. तो अगर हम इसे एक कॉर्नर में डिफाइन भी करना चाहेंगे प्रिसाइसली तो भी हम नहीं कर पाएंगे क्योंकि ये बहुत बड़ा एरिया है लॉ का. तो currently we can say that administrative law is that law which deals with the functions of the governmental bodies and the responsibilities of the authority who are working under these governmental bodies is all about the administrative law. And the aim of the administrative law, the objective of the administrative law is to limit the administrative bodies in the process of exercising their discretionary power so that this discretionary power do not go ultra virusly exercised. Now we'll later discuss on the another topic that why these discretionary power were vested with the governmental bodies. So this was the part of the meaning of the administrative law. Now we'll move on to the growth and development of the administrative law. So to understand this topic we need to have a background, that is that during the 20th century the major transaction was happened in the context of the nature of the state. So during this period the state was converted from the laissez-faire state to a welfare state. Now laissez-faire state theory is that theory which means that the state's major work is to protect its citizens and maintain law and order and collect taxes. And this was similarly happened in India during the period of Mughals. So it was before the era of 20th century, and during this period the Mughals were concerned only about protecting the state from external aggression, maintenance of law and order, and collection of taxes. That was it, but not more than that. But after the period of 20th century and during it also, this was the time wherein the state has converted to a welfare state. Now the welfare state theory is that means that state is not just concerned about the security of its citizens or of collection of tax, but also how their citizens are going to pursue their life. The state ensures the food quality is maintained. The state ensures that pure air, pure water is being consumed by its citizens. तो ये सारी चीज़ें, education is also one of the major component which was ensured by a state to its citizens. So this was some of the striking features of a welfare state, and this was the reason why the state was transacted. This was the reason why the state was changed from a laissez-faire state to a welfare state. Now, this was the time wherein the major development of the administrative law has been taken place. क्योंकि ऐसे टाइम में क्या होता है कि स्टेट का जो फंक्शन होता है वो इंक्रीज हो जाता है. laissez-faire state में function was limited, but in welfare state function was multiplied. Now the state or governmental bodies were required to interfere in the public era, in the public life, so that this interference was also controlled by a particular law, which is now called as the administrative law. तो अब क्या हुआ था कि ड्यूरिंग दिस पर्टिकुलर एरा दिस ट्रांजेक्शन हैपेंड. नाउ आफ्टर दिस ट्रांजेक्शन the administrative law was developing. So we'll discuss about the modern Indian perspective of how the growth of the administrative law took place during the modern India. So modern India, here we are referring to that era wherein the Britishers were ruling in India. And इस टाइम में क्या हुआ था कि जो ब्रिटिश ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी थी वो एक ट्रेडिंग कंपनी के रूप में आई थी, लेकिन फिर उसके बाद वो स्लोली कन्वर्ट हो गई एक गवर्नमेंटल एजेंसी में, और फिर वो इंडियंस पे रूल करने लगी. तो ऐसे टाइम में क्या हुआ कि धीरे धीरे पब्लिक इंटरफेरेंस बढ़ गया एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव एजेंसी का, ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी का. तो इसने पावर एक्सरसाइज करनी शुरू की और धीरे धीरे इसने अपने आप को एक गवर्नमेंटल और एक अथॉरिटेटिव बॉडी के रूप में स्थापित किया इंडिया में. तो ऐसे टाइम में ही एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव लॉ का डेवलपमेंट भी हुआ इन इंडिया. तो सबसे पहले क्या हुआ था कि जो ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी थी उसने लाइसेंस ग्रांट करने शुरू किए, और उन्होंने लाइसेंस ग्रांट करने के लिए सबसे पहले एक एक्ट पास किया जिसका नाम था स्टेट कैरेज एक्ट 1861. So State Carriage Act 1861 was the act by which the East India Company started granting license. Now license की ज़रूरत ट्रेड करने के लिए पड़ी, इसलिए ये एक्ट पास हुआ. फिर आता है फर्स्ट पब्लिक कॉरपोरेशन एक एक्ट के थ्रू, जो एक्ट का नाम था बॉम्बे पोर्ट ट्रस्ट एक्ट 1879. सो बॉम्बे पोर्ट ट्रस्ट एक्ट 1879 के थ्रू फर्स्ट पब्लिक कॉरपोरेशन ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी ने स्टैब्लिश की इंडिया में. फिर आता है डेलीगेटेड लेजिस्लेशन, जो कि एक बहुत डेलीगेटेड लेजिस्लेशन एक अच्छा टॉपिक है एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव लॉ में, और ये एक एक्सेप्टेड व्यू है एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव लॉ का. ये एक्सेप्ट किया इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ने भी. तो डेलीगेटेड लेजिस्लेशन जो है वो सबसे पहले लेजिटिमेट पावर में आई थी एक एक्ट के पास होने के बाद, और उस एक्ट का नाम है नॉर्दर्न इंडिया कैनाल एंड ड्रेनेज एक्ट 1873. नॉर्दर्न इंडिया कैनाल एंड ड्रेनेज एक्ट 1873 एंड ओपियम एक्ट 1878. ये दोनों एक्ट के पास होने के बाद डेलीगेटेड लेजिस्लेशन को लेजिटिमेसी मिली ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी के एरा में इन इंडिया. तो अब ये सारी चीज़ें ब्रिटिश पीरियड के टाइम की हैं. अब पोस्ट ब्रिटिश एरा वाज आफ्टर इंडिया गॉट इंडिपेंडेंस. तो आफ्टर इंडिया गॉट इंडिपेंडेंस द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल लीडर्स ऑफ द इंडिया हैव ऑल्सो एक्सेप्टेड द थ्योरी ऑफ वेलफेयर. तो they have tried to include the welfare policy in part 4 of the constitution, which is now known as directive principle of state policies. तो पार्ट 4 के जितने भी आर्टिकल और जितने भी प्रोविजंस हैं कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में, वो हमें यही बताते हैं कि स्टेट जो है वो एक वेलफेयर स्टेट है. स्पेशली इंडियन स्टेट इज़ अ वेलफेयर स्टेट, और वो हर वो काम करेगा जो कि सिटीजन्स के हित में होगा. तो ऐसे में वेलफेयर पॉलिसी और वेलफेयर स्टेट को लीगलाइज्ड कर दिया गया और एक बेटर एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन के लिए. और फिर क्या हुआ कि एक बेटर एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन और एग्जीक्यूशन के लिए लॉज बनने शुरू हुए ग्राउंड लेवल पे। तो उसके प्रोसीजर, जैसे डेलीगेटेड लेजिस्लेशन को बोरो किया इंडिया ने to cater Indian needs. And then with the judicial activisms, there were certain case laws, very important case laws, which have emphasized that judicial activism is legally valid, and it is the job of judiciary to get activated if the other two organs are not performing their work. तो ऐसे में जुडिशल एक्टिविज़म को भी काफ़ी बढ़ावा मिला, बहुत सारे केसेस आए जिसके थ्रू जुडिशल एक्टिविज़म को इनकरेज किया इंडियन जुडिशरी ने। और फिर legislative power, if they get exercised ultra viriously, then they were considered as unconstitutional, and judiciary was going beyond its limits to protect the citizens of India during this time. तो ऐसे टाइम को भी एक एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव लॉ के ग्रोथ एंड डेवलपमेंट के अंदर देखा जाता है। और फिर एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन को फ्लेक्सिबल करने के लिए जुडिशरी ने बहुत सारे लॉज बनाए, बहुत सारे एक्ट पास हुए इस टाइम पे। तो ऐसे ही ग्रोथ हुई एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव लॉ की, एंड नाउ वी कैन से दैट एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव लॉ is still in the process of evolution, and let's hope ki it gets codified soon. So thank you, this was it for today.